Okay, is Khalil coming? Khalil, come on. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Karen Mazurkiewicz. I'm the Vice President of Stakeholder Relations and Communications for Toronto Pearson. Today, Toronto Pearson CEO and President Deborah Flint will be providing an update on airport operations and the investigation following Monday's incident. We also have several representatives from our first responder agencies, as well as our COO of Toronto Pearson Operations. So behind me are Peel Regional Police Deputy Chief Mark Andrews, Peel Paramedics Commander of Operations Corey Toketch, Mississauga Fire Chief Darren Reetsey, and Toronto Pearson's Fire Chief Todd Aiken, and Khalil Laramet from our COO of Toronto Pearson. With that, I'd like to welcome Toronto Pearson CEO Deborah Flint, who will take a couple of questions after her remarks. Following that, our first responders are available to also answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and good morning to all. We are providing a third update this morning on yesterday's events as the accident transitions to the investigation phase, and I will share more on that investigation phase and what to expect shortly. First, however, it's really important to recognize how grateful we are that there was no loss of life or life-threatening injuries in yesterday's accident. You know, every time you board a flight, you are greeted by flight attendants and by flight crew often. It's their job to make us comfortable and confident about the flight ahead, and they do an incredible job with that. But we saw the most important role that they play in action yesterday. The crew of Delta Flight 4819 heroically led passengers to safety, evacuating a jet that had overturned on the runway on landing that was amidst smoke and fire. I thank each and every one of these heroes, every flight attendant and crew member on Delta Flight 4819. I also thank every flight attendant and crew member across the industry. Thank you for all that you do every day and every night in service of safe air travel. In regards to the accident yesterday, at approximately 2:15 p.m., Delta Airlines Flight 4819 from Minneapolis to Toronto, operated by subsidiary Endeavour Air, was involved in a single aircraft accident upon landing at Toronto Pearson. The plane was carrying 4 crew and 76 passengers, among them 22 Canadians. Flight attendants, flight crews, and airport emergency workers and responders mounted a textbook response, reaching the site within minutes and quickly evacuating the passengers. At the time, there were 21 injured passengers ranging from minor to critical but not life-threatening injuries. A total of 19 passengers went to the local hospitals, with 2 more going to hospitals in the time period after. At this time, Delta Airlines has reported that 19 of those passengers have been released and 2 remain hospitalized. Our thoughts go out to all of the passengers impacted and their families. We have taken great time and care to extend care to each of the passengers that were here after the accident. That includes comfort as well as support in their emotional well-being in the hours since the crash. We have completed the reunification process for all of the remaining passengers, and we'll continue to care for them during this extended time. I will now give you more information about the operation and what to expect in the days ahead. From last Thursday to Sunday, Toronto Pearson saw extreme conditions, 2 separate snowstorms. On Thursday and Sunday, we got more than 20 inches, 50 centimeters of accumulated snow. That is actually not typical. In fact, it is more snow within that time window than we received in all of last winter. There were many delays and cancellations across this part of Canada and the U.S. Northeast during this time, creating numerous flight delays and backlogs. At Toronto Pearson, 221 of 974 scheduled flights were canceled on Thursday. 75 of 1,012 scheduled flights were canceled on Friday. 128 of 937 scheduled flights were canceled on Saturday, and 371 of 987 on Sunday. Monday was a clear day, though, and it was an operational recovery day for Toronto Pearson, with 1,006 scheduled flights. The results yesterday, in due part to the accident, were 462 scheduled flights canceled and 544 flights operated. Let's now talk about the investigation and what to expect in the next few days as we pivot to this phase. Last night, 7 members of the Transportation Safety Board of Canada arrived at Toronto Pearson to begin the investigation. 13 more of those investigators arrived today. Members of the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration are also here on site, participating in the investigation. As it is a Mitsubishi aircraft, Mitsubishi will be here on site as well, and Delta Airlines has sent their GO team who are already here on site. So what does this all mean for operations at Toronto Pearson today and in the days ahead? Our Emergency Operations Center does remain open, though operations on the runways resumed at 5 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday. We have been in recovery mode since resuming flights at 5 p.m. yesterday, catching up on delayed flights, and that continues into today as well. We are currently without use of our longest east-west and north-south runways. This and ongoing expected additional weather conditions today will affect how fast we recover operations, particularly with departure of aircraft. We do expect that the investigators on site will be reviewing the aircraft on its current configuration on the runway for the next 48 hours. And we are looking to get to support that investigation and the removal of that aircraft off the runway, at which point we can do our inspections and then return that runway into service. Toronto Pearson will continue to provide you all with operational updates, but this is now an active investigation time, and you can expect to start hearing more from the investigating authorities about the accident that happened here. We expect that the Transportation Safety Board of Canada will be issuing a statement with more information around that later this afternoon. In closing, I thank the industry, the community, and all of our employees here and across the sector for all the work that they are doing to support this incident and those affected, and that they do every day. Air travel remains the safest form of transportation. We are proud of that record here, and at times like these, we're very grateful and thankful of how the community and the industry comes together as one. Thank you.
We'll now take a few questions. Folks who maybe can come up to. Okay.
Sure. Hi there. Alex Capriello with News Nation. A question about the conditions yesterday. Obviously, you just explained the extent of the snowstorms that came over the past few days. Wondering if there's been any developments or any comment about what exactly it was like on the runway in terms of iciness or wind gusts. Last night we heard the fire chief say that he did not believe that that played a role in this crash at all. Is that still the theory here? And if so, do we have any developments on what caused the crash if it wasn't weather related?
Okay.
Yeah, this would not be a time for us to have theory or to speculate on what caused the crash. So as I shared, we have a number of agencies that are here that are responsible for doing a thorough and full and complete investigation to determine all the causal factors, and we are looking forward to getting those results and to sharing those, and those will be shared very publicly once they are received.
And I understand that if you don't want to speculate about the crash, but can you tell us then what the condition of the runway was like at that time of the impact? I mean, was it slick? Have your teams been able to determine that?
I look forward to sharing all of that information at the proper time. Again, those are all the details that are going to be covered during this investigation, and that is active currently.
Hi there, Viosa Isai from the New York Times. I have one question and a follow-up. Does air traffic control handle CRJs differently than other aircraft in crosswinds?
The air traffic control is responsible, NAV Canada, for all of the aircraft activity here at Toronto Pearson and in the surrounding areas. They will have to respond differently themselves as to how they manage those aircraft uniquely.
And then how do you decide to pause operations because of wind, and who makes that decision?
That is a cross-collected decision that is made between NAV Canada and the pilots during live operations. We are not pausing operations. We do have a slowdown in the operations due to 2 of our runways being closed for operations at this time, and those are the key contributing factors to the delays.
Last question. There's no Delta or TSB representatives on the stage with you right now. Are you able to speak to why they're not present?
We've been very much in communication with all of those involved, all of the agencies, Delta Airlines and others. We've all had quite extensive communication. They've been in our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center. So the system and the response to the accident is working as planned and going quite well with our partners.
John Worrell with the Associated Press. 2 questions. One is the 2 people who remain in the hospital. Any timeline on how long they may remain?
I do not have that information.
Do you know what condition they're in?
What we do know is that, again, 19 of those that were hospitalized are no longer hospitalized. The 2 that remain, none face life-threatening injuries from what we've been briefed and what Delta Airlines has released as well.
And just finally, Deborah, given what we saw from all the videos that are on social media, and I'm sure what you've seen internally, how is it more remarkable that everyone was able to, survive this incident?
There are so many factors that lead us to have gratitude today. Again, I cannot commend enough the crew, the flight attendants, pilots, and our emergency responders for their quick and effective response. It's really incredible, and when you see that aircraft, it just makes you really thankful for all the safety checks that go into running this one of the world's safest air transportation systems.
Okay, we'll take questions now from the first responders, please.
Good morning, Momin Qureshi from 680 News Radio. My question really is, last check, the wreckage was still out there on the runway. I just wanted to know if we know how long that will be out there and what kind of impact that's having on service here at the airport.
Yeah, so as I shared, yes, that the remains of the aircraft will remain on the runway while the investigators are performing their reviews. We expect that could be about 48 hours. And so until that time, 2 of our runways will remain closed, and that is affecting the volume of traffic that we're having. So passengers should be looking and working with their airlines, checking our website for information on delays and potential cancellations as well for the next several days.
Just as a follow-up to that, then, I've been upstairs, as many of us have, talking to passengers, and many of them, most of them, all of them really are understanding of the ripple effect, but are extremely frustrated by the lack of information or conflicting information. So just what do you say to your passengers right now who are trying to get themselves on flights to their destinations but are left feeling frustrated by conflicting information or a lack of information?
We are here very much at the airport to support and provide passenger care for people that might find themselves here at their airport and have their flights disrupted. So we'll continue to provide that customer care for them. But in the interim, please do check with your airlines, check your website, and check your apps for your most updated flight information.
Thank you. We'll move now to questions to the responders. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. It's Shauna with City News. Can you talk a little bit about the response, how long it took fire trucks to get to the plane, and can you talk a little bit about the flame that we saw in the video and the smoke, and was it easy to put out? And just really take us through the response.
All right, Todd.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The actual time, it was a very quick response from Toronto Pearson Fire Emergency Services. Upon arrival, the crew did witness spot fires. They were able to quickly knock down the spot fires using the aircraft rescue firefighting apparatus. Once the fires were knocked down, the crews did make entry and perform primary search and rescue. The passengers were all evacuated, and then they were taken to a secondary location at Station 2 for triage with our mutual aid partners.
Just a quick follow-up. Can you describe what it was like? Because we've seen videos of the passengers hanging upside down in their seatbelts. Can you maybe just describe what it was like to get these people, you know, hanging, cut down, and out of the plane?
I believe that most of the passengers self-evacuated at that time, and upon arrival, they were being escorted to a second location.
Hello, Nate Foy, Fox News. I'm just seeking some clarity from a first responder's perspective on the elements in your efforts yesterday. I know a lot of people are hoping for some clarity on what the fire chief said, and it sounds like you guys won't give us that, but can you tell me what it was like out there on the runway as you were doing your job? Was the runway dry, and the wind gust, how did it impact you?
And like we mentioned, it's very early to make any conclusions. I know I provided a little bit of information yesterday for transparency. Today, now we have an active investigation. Therefore, any of those questions would have to be directed toward Transportation Safety Board.
Hi there, Karen Lieberman with Global News. Besides the chief, I just wondered if any of the other first responders could speak to their own experiences and what you found and how you cared for some of these passengers.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. Mark Andrews, Deputy Chief with Peel Regional Police. I'd like to, before I answer the question, I'd like to say that our thoughts and prayers are with the 76 crew members and 4 passengers and their families that were impacted by yesterday's events, which fortunately had the best possible outcome for all of us. Our response as Peel Regional Police, we're the police of jurisdiction. We have a really robust presence here at the airport. We actually have a fully functioning division with 100 officers and civilians located. We have a presence on the public side and the private side. So we were able to respond in a very timely fashion along with our first responder partners. The conditions were difficult, but I will say this, that we regularly practice with our partners in fire and EMS and the GTAA and Transport Safety Canada. So we were prepared for this event, as extreme as it was. And our men and women, not only in policing, but across all the first responder services, did a tremendous job. And in my mind, no doubt saved lives. So I'd like to acknowledge that. There was some impact, on the police of jurisdiction being ourselves, not only here at the airport, because as you can imagine, we don't have surge capacity to deal with something like this the way they do in the private industry. We had, at one point we had 50 police officers responding to the circumstances here at the airport and the surrounding environment. What I'd like to do is thank our partners at the OPP, Commissioner Tom Creek and Chief Marion Demke, because they supported us through the aftermath of the incident. Officers to support both of our public. All in all, it was a great response by first responders supporting GTAA and our TSB partners, but it's something that we've practiced and we're well prepared for should this happen again going forward.
Mississauga Fire and Communications Services received the 911 call. It's called a crash alarm, so we get it directly from Pearson into our communications center. So we had a very quick response. We had 6 apparatus from Mississauga Fire respond. It was a combination of aerials, engines, and squads. In addition, we sent our command vehicle and also a tanker. We also had an acting platoon chief, a district chief, and myself that attended the scene. I took a position within their Emergency Operations Center. Just to reiterate what Deputy just said, annually our firefighters at a location called Festi. It's a training facility. Our primary response is to assist with water supply, search and rescue, rehab, and medical support. The Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services and Mississauga Office of Emergency Management participates in 2 annual emergency exercises that are held at Toronto Pearson International Airport each year, including a high-level tabletop command exercise and a full-scale boots-on-the-ground emergency exercise. In addition to the exercises conducted each year at Toronto Pearson International Airport, the City of Mississauga conducts its own functional emergency exercise, and we did that in 2021, examining an aircraft accident occurring within the City of Mississauga. This exercise included partners from various organizations, including those represented in the exercises held here regularly at Pearson. The Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services and OEM provides emergency management training to regional partners from various organizations who may be involved in the response to an aircraft accident, amongst other emergencies. The Mississauga Office of Emergency Management can also serve as a conduit between the city and the Provincial Emergency Operations Center if provincial-wide coordination for the response and recovery of community impacts during an emergency is required. During an aircraft accident, the Mississauga Office of Emergency Management can assist in the coordination of providing municipal services if requested by our community partners who may be impacted in the event. This could include transportation like buses, facilities, or heavy equipment. The City of Mississauga has developed its own aircraft accident emergency plan, which conforms with and operates in conjunction to the airport emergency plan developed by the Greater Toronto Airport Authority.
Thanks. That was a fulsome response.
I just also wondered if anyone can speak to the nature of some of the injuries.
Do you want to speak to some of the nature?
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Takach. I'm a commander of operations within Peel Regional Paramedic Services. So upon our arrival of the crash site, our staff were faced with a multitude of different injuries, mainly stemming from back sprains, head injuries, anxiety, some headaches, nausea and vomiting due to the fuel exposure. So those were the common sort of injuries that we had come across.
Any more questions?
Please, Mal Hamidi, Canadian Press. Just want to follow up on this rescue effort. Can you please provide some details on the timeline? How long did you, paramedics and firefighters, did it take for them to get to the airplane, and how long did it take for them to evacuate the airplane?
Okay, Todd, you want to take that?
Yeah, the response from Toronto Pearson Fire Emergency Services was minutes. Because there is an active investigation, we won't be able to provide the details, but it was a very quick response from Fire Emergency Services as well as our response partners that just spoke.
Can you please also comment on the role that flight attendants played in evacuating the airplane? We saw some videos on social media where basically doing their job, helping passengers get off the plane. Can you please comment on their role in this?
Sure, absolutely. We train for such events. We're very well prepared and trained, and the firefighters responded textbook. They were able to knock down the fire. They're able to assist the passengers getting off the plane and then performing triage and then response to the hospitals.
you. Next question.
Hi, I'm Alex Miller with Scripps News. I know you can't confirm what you saw on the runway, but can you confirm that the runway had been coded as fives across the board as a wet runway for the pilots, which is a runway with light snow or slush?
Sorry, I don't know if I followed that question. Do you want to answer or do you want to repeat it? Did you get it?
You know, like I mentioned earlier, because there is an active investigation, that will have to be directed towards the Transport Safety Board, please.
Hi, Jessica Murphy, BBC News. I want to go back to something Mr. Andrews said. You talked about difficult conditions that rescuers faced on the ground. I'm hoping you could go into a bit more detail.
Sorry, with who said? Sorry?
BBC. Oh,
No, sorry.
Peel Regional Police.
Peel Regional Police.
Thank you for that question. The conditions that I was speaking of is the environmental conditions, the cold, the wind, the fact that we were still having the occasional snow. But those are conditions, again, that we're used to working in as first responders, and our people, along with the other first responders, did a tremendous job of responding in those conditions. It's part of the environment that we operate in.
Megan Fitzpatrick from CBC News. What can you tell us about the child that was airlifted to sick kids? Do we know if the child was on somebody's lap or buckled in? What can you tell us about the nature of their injuries?
No, we don't. I'm sorry.
You don't know if the child was on a
know.
lap?
No, we don't have those details.
Can you give us an age range of the passengers on the plane?
We don't have that either. I would direct that to Delta.
We're going to take two more questions.
Okay.
And just one more. Of the two that are in hospital, is one of them the child?
We're not sure either.
I have a quick question for fire. Flammable is it? How much time did that give you to tame it?
Okay. Did you hear the question? Okay. It's on the jet fuel, like whether they were.
Yes. Upon arrival, there was jet fuel and there was flames. We do have specialized aircraft rescue firefighting equipment that carries water, foam, and dry chem, and that it is utilized to smother and cover up the jet fuel to provide mean-free egress for the passengers. So we do have the appropriate equipment and the appropriate training to mitigate that emergency.
Okay, we'll take the last question.
Just like a last question on the nature of the injuries. The people who were more seriously injured, those who were at one point in critical condition, what type of injuries were those? Are we talking about like broken bones, serious sprains?
I think the paramedic did speak to that a bit, but he can come back and reiterate.
Yeah. So on the initial assessment in any mass casualty incident, we do a triage of patients. And yes, some patients were deemed to be critical at that time. And we make that assessment based on our initial contact, what the patient's complaining of, the fact that they were involved in a plane crash. And some of those determinations happen quite quickly in the short amount of time that we spend with that patient to ensure that they're receiving the quickest care possible. And there are times when further care occurs and those conditions get downgraded. So from critical to like serious and non-life threatening. There are times in scenarios like this where somebody may be complaining of like abdominal pain or a head injury, and we may err on the side of caution to deem them critical because we can't see inside their skull, we can't see inside their abdomen, but based on some of their vital signs and other determining factors, that's when sort of the decision to make them a critical patient would have occurred.
So in terms of like the acuity of injuries, perhaps the most acute would be that like the back sprain or the head injury possible.
Yeah, a head injury from an acuity state is obviously very dangerous. The issue is we obviously can't see inside the head at that time, right? So.
Well, thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it. I really thank all the responders as well for their time to come today and explain the situation on the ground. We will continue to give more updates on operations, Toronto Pearson, but from this going forward now, it is an active investigation, and we can expect hopefully to hear some news from the investigators. Thank you.